So, in the beginning of the season, when the Washington Wizards had one of the worst records in the NBA, and everybody was speculating that Bradley Beal was calling for a trade, and he said, "No, I want to be a Wizard." Well, he just got bounced in the first round, and when they asked him about his future with the Washington Wizards, he basically he wasn't with it. He didn't want to answer it. He just brushed it off. What do you guys think is in store for Bradley Beal?
I think Bradley Beal's going to be traded. This is something that we've known for about 3 years now. Bradley Beal's going to be traded. It could be Bradley Beal wants to be traded. The Washington Wizards is probably going to
Was
understand it's probably going to be like a very good trade offer on the table, and then they're going to trade him. This is something that we know been coming. I don't know why Bradley Beal has this fixation with the Washington Wizards. I personally believe it's probably because he has some very good relationships in Washington, and he personally believes that he's that guy, so you can actually get them over the top. Bradley Beal needs to come to the realization that he's not a number one. He needs an actual team around him, and the Washington Wizards, they've done a very poor job of actually doing so. Now I'm not gonna lie, getting Russell Westbrook was definitely a very big thing, but the players around them wasn't necessarily good. I won't necessarily say that they weren't good. They just weren't good right now. They have a lot of very good young talent that was in the starting lineup, like had very important rotational roles that just wasn't good right now. A lot of potential. Rui Hachimura, I personally think that he's a potential all-star. They needed good veterans. They needed Jay Crowder. They needed people like that. But as of right now, I think Bradley Bill's going to understand. He sees the writing on the wall. They're probably not necessarily going to be good. The Washington Wizards already started the future movement. I personally believe a couple more first-round picks on top of Bradley Bill being traded, that would definitely sweeten the deal for them a little bit more. I just personally believe that he wants to win right now. He's getting a little bit older in age. I think he's about 28 years old right now, 27, 28. This is the time where he's going to start to look around and start seeing, I have no rings on my finger, a whole bunch of stats. Who's going to remember me in 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, well, first you said you wouldn't necessarily call the players that he's playing with bad. I would call them bad. I would call them trash. Might even call them garbage. But what's going on in Washington is toxic. It's a disgrace, and it's been like that for years now. Like for years, their best team that they had in a long time was when they had John Wall, Markieff Morris, Otto Porter, and I believe Robin Lopez. When they let Isaiah Thomas bounce them out the playoffs, and they never looked back after that. So as far as Brad Bill needing to leave, he needs to get out of that situation. Like you say, he's already 28, 29. His game, however, he has longevity in his career because of the way he plays, and he already got his payday. So like you questioned, I don't know what is his obsession or whatever it is that's tying him to Washington. I know he has a family, got relationships like you said, but at the end of the day, man, we talking about basketball. We talking about winning. And we've seen too many situations where guys like Kevin Garnett just didn't have enough help, and so for the duration of their career, it's just a bunch of wasted years. The stats are good, but like me personally, I don't remember Paul Pierce before he got KG and Ray Allen. I barely remember KG from his early Minnesota days. So if I'm Brad Billman, like you said, I may try to get to the Lakers. I may even try to get to the Clippers depending on how that series go. I would really like to see a guy like Brad Bill in Dallas though. I know it's probably highly unlikely, but can you imagine what a guy like Luka Doncic would do if he had another 30-point per game scorer that can also handle the ball? That would be dangerous.
I think we all agree that the Washington Wizards they need to move that franchise out of Washington. I know they were looking for a team to put in Seattle. Maybe the Washington Wizards needs to just get up out of there. All right. Now, do I think Bradley Beal is staying or should he stay? Nah, he shouldn't. He really shouldn't. I see a player who, when he first got drafted till now, each year he's gotten better and better, and the franchise has gotten worse and worse. And I really feel like it's franchise malpractice. The longer he stays there, the more unnoticed and unsuccessful team wise he's gonna be. And it just sucks to see. Like Tyler said, you look at guys like Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. 10 years from now, are we gonna remember these days of Bradley Beal, or are we gonna remember when if he ever does go and team up and get a ring somewhere? But what if he goes somewhere like I don't know Portland, where they're saying Dame has to put the team on his back to he's scoring all the points and they still lose. What if he had another guy who can maybe match his scoring?
That would be absolutely amazing. I think Bradley Bill just needs to go somewhere where you feel me, his team could actually use him in regards to actual playoff basketball and actual playoff success. I think you brought up a very good point, Tyler. Imagine him in Dallas. That would be absolutely insane. I mean, obviously Kristaps Porzingis is there, and y'all don't like that name right now. But I think a pair like Luka Doncic and Bradley Beal could definitely do something, especially now. You seen Luka Doncic being the guy, barely having any help from anybody else. I think obviously Bradley Beal is going to be that guy versus the Clippers, versus the Suns, versus other very good teams in the Western Conference in the playoffs that could get you that 25 to 30 points on a nightly basis. And obviously, I think that right there would definitely take Luka Doncic over the top. But I wouldn't necessarily rule out him staying in Washington and them just upgrading the roster. Because we've already heard and we have already seen his commitment to the Wizards. If the Wizards could actually come up to Bradley Beal and say, this is the plan that we have for you in the upcoming season, these are the players that we're going to get, I think that they could definitely do something with him because they do have a Russell Westbrook that's arguably one of the best passers in the league, arguably one of the hardest workers in the league. I think they could definitely do something. But with the roster they got right now, Rui Hachimura, Daniel Gaff, come on, man, what are you doing here? I mean, you got Russell Westbrook driving to the lane, Bradley Beal in the corner getting double team. He gonna pass out to Denny Avdija. Like, come on, we gotta get some actual players in there. Gotta get some shooters. Gotta get some actual defenders. Get him something. Raul Neto, he's not gonna be able to do it. Bro. We gotta stop this.
But Rob, I don't see how or why Bradley Beal will feel like that when he's been there for 8 years. He was in a situation where it was him and John Wall still on rookie contracts, and they weren't really putting anything around him, of either of them. I don't see the Washington Wizards waking up and doing something different. I feel like they're going to keep doing what they were doing before, expecting different results. And that's just not how it flies.
I mean, you look at the free agents of this year. You got John Collins that could potentially be a free agent target, man, because the Hawks look like they pretty much got a bunch of cap, strung up in a lot of the other players. They could potentially get him, DeMar DeRozan potentially on the market, Chris Paul probably on the market. Obviously, him and Russell Westbrook might clash a little bit. But obviously, potentially get even some shooters. I know it's probably gonna hurt me, but of course, Duncan Robinson is gonna be a free agent this all season. Kendrick Nunn's gonna be a free agent this all season. Having Russell Westbrook drive to the paint, kicking out to shooters like that would probably be a very good idea. I just think that there's a lot of players on the market, a lot of good players on the market that could potentially bolster their roster and make them a little bit more respectable. Not no what's it called? Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdija, Raul Neto. Come on,
Kwame Brown. Like, what are we talking? Now, you mentioned Kendrick Nunn, you mentioned Duncan Robinson. These are nice players. Don't get me wrong, but you said so yourself. Bradley Beal is not a number one option. Now, granted, there aren't a lot of number one options just on the market right now. But if you Bradley Beal and you don't really have an ego, you toss that ego aside, you got to get to a team where you could be a solid number two and your only priority is just scoring. And you let the number one take the fall and the majority of the responsibility. There's no way, guys like Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, like, you're not going to bring those names to me in the offseason and expect me not to demand a trade right there on the spot. There's just no way.
Well, listen. I got two responses to that. The first response is, does Bradley Beal know he's not a number one option? That's the first thing. Because if he doesn't know that he's not a number one option, the Washington Wizards could definitely sell him a dream. If they sell him a dream, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he'd stay there and be that guy. Now, the second thing, if a roster is already complete and they just need that guy to be more respectable, I think that Bradley Beal could possibly be a number one option. For example, if you added Bradley Beal to the 2020 Miami Heat, that's a ring automatically, and Bradley Beal would have been the number one option over Jimmy Butler, in my opinion. You put Bradley Beal on the New York Knicks, that right there could potentially be a conference finals team. And Bradley Beal in his head might believe that he's that guy that could potentially take a New York Knicks over the top. And obviously, playing in the Madison Square Garden would potentially be a very good idea. But regardless, selling Bradley Beal a dream in Washington would probably be the best way to go if you want to keep Bradley Beal in Washington. I think they could potentially do so. Hey, we got Russell Westbrook. Hey, we about to get a bunch of shooters. We about to get a bunch of defenders. This is what we're going to do. But you never know.
I see what you're saying, because you could compare it to like a Phoenix Suns situation where Devin Booker is obviously the number one option, just like Bradley Beal would be obviously the number one option, because they have a very similar game. It's just that Dev Book also has guys like Ayton, Cam Johnson, Crowder, CP. So I definitely get what you're saying, but it's rare where there's a lot of guys around still left for to be built put around Bradley Beal in Washington. So I definitely say that's a good point that you make actually. But again, it depends. Are those guys around to be put around Bradley Beal? I don't know.
As of right now, Russell Westbrook is on a supermax contract, so it might be a little bit difficult. Bradley Beal might be looking for a supermax extension if he actually does stay in Washington. It's going to be about how attractive that destination is for a lot of free agents out there, and I personally believe it's probably not going to be that attractive, honestly. Living in Washington or living in LA, Miami, Dallas, New York, it's like, come on.
And I just want to make this last point. You bring up the question, does Bradley Beal know he's not a number one option? Granted, if the Wizards do want to trade him, they're going to have to sell him like a number one option because he did sign a 2-year extension, a 2-year $71 million extension, which starts next year. First year, he's getting 34, and then he's getting 37 million in his second year. That's going to be a hard contract to dump.
Is it?
I
Is
think
it?
so.
Hey, I'm going to tell you right now. What's it called? Chris Paul about to get paid $44 million if he opts in. If he opts out, he's probably gonna get still close to that. Damian Lillard, even though he is Damian Lillard, he's gonna get paid $50 million. You feel me? If Anthony Davis is gonna be getting paid $50 million. At this particular point, is 37 really that crazy?
I don't think so, especially for a guy like Bill who right now averaging 30, and even if he was a number 2 option, he would give you 25. So it's not, and it's not even necessarily called dumping. That's a terrible word to use. Whoever get Bradley Beal, their team is automatically better.